What paranormal activities have you witnessed? One weekend, I was at my dad's house. He'd come to the upstairs bathroom to get a shave, and I heard footsteps in my stepsister's room. I thought it was him walking around initially, so I got up to find him standing at her closed door. He looks back at me and whispers, "You can hear that too, right?" I nodded and he opened the door slowly. My stepsister was asleep, and never had been awake apparently. There was no way she could have crossed the room, gotten in bed, and pretended to be that convincingly asleep in the 2 seconds it took my dad to open the door. He went in, checked her TV, which had never been on. She had one of those big ones from the 90s that would get warm when turned on. The radio hadn't been on either. Figured maybe it was the beat of a song or something. After that, we heard the footsteps a bunch of times, usually very early in the morning. Some of the footsteps were so heavy, they'd shake the ceiling fan of the dining room directly under her bedroom, and they'd woken her up a few times as well. Whenever I'd shower at my dad's, I always felt like someone was standing behind me. Eventually, I got so stressed and paranoid that I refused to shower at the house or even go into the upstairs bathroom. My dad asked me one day, "Do you ever feel like someone's in the shower with you when you're here?" After months of me feeling that way and never mentioning it to anyone. Not sure if this is considered paranormal, but when I get fevers as a child, I would always, in my fugue and pain-infused state, hear a man counting in a very deep voice. He would count from 1 and up. As the numbers get larger, the voice gets louder and more intense. It started to get less frequent as I grew older, and now I do not experience it anymore. I've brushed it aside as a recurring nightmare until only recently. I've learned that my sister would experience the exact same thing when she was younger as well. It's not the scariest thing, but it does send shivers down my spine trying to comprehend this. When I was 3, I told my parents that my great-grandmother came to me in a dream and said her feet didn't hurt anymore. I think she had problems due to diabetes or something. She had died that night. They received the call shortly after I told them. Not paranormal, but a spooky coincidence. How nice of Grandma to tell you she wasn't in pain anymore instead of outright saying she's fucking dead. Still freaky though. I work in a cemetery. One evening I had stayed late to do some catch-up work. I was taking pictures of some granite samples to have on my phone, and had already locked up. I was alone. As I was holding my phone, I heard the doorway to the basement swing open, slammed shut, and heard footsteps go down the stairs. I froze. I thought for sure someone had come in. I called out to see if it was someone from maintenance. No reply. I got scared because if it wasn't them, someone had broken in. I stayed still for a bit, and listened, then called out again. Nothing. Finally I got brave enough to look. No one there. I peeked down the basement, empty. All the doors were still locked. What the hell kind of super evil and scary cemetery has a basement? The evil of corporate-owned cemeteries. Whoa! I don't believe in paranormal activity, but my grandparents' house is considered by many to be extremely haunted. It's part of a tour of haunted houses in the LA area, and according to legend was part of the inspiration for American Horror Story. There are tons of stories, but the one I experienced myself was when I was living there as a child. I was about 6 years old and my older sister was 12, and we shared a room. My mom had decorated our bedside table with an antique telephone that didn't work and was not plugged in. My sister and I were asleep, and for some reason we both woke up at the same time and turned to face each other. I remember feeling an extreme feeling of dread. Then the phone rang in between us. We locked eyes and both hid under our blankets till it stopped ringing. We both thought it was a dream because we didn't say anything for years about it. Then one day she was talking about it, and we realized we had had the exact same experience. There are so many more stories, but that's the only one I experienced directly. How do you make those truths jibe? I too am atheist and don't believe in the spiritual supernatural, but I had the oddest experience at my mom's house. She and my sister were convinced it was haunted. I never lived there, built after I moved away to college. But I did come back home for a while Mom was going through a divorce. They always complained that the upstairs was haunted. Faucets turning on and off, doors moving, that sort of thing. I chalked it up to faulty construction and a lien to the house. But one day I was taking a shower and I had a soft thump from the bedroom. Wrapped up my shower in the bath towel, which had been setting on the sink, was balled up and chucked across the room into a bookshelf at least 10 feet away. I was home alone at the time and I have no idea what happened. My family's old house backed onto a pretty substantial, forested ravine. I slept on the ground level floor, and my room was at the back of the house. On 4 separate occasions, over the span of 5 years, I saw a middle-aged man dressed in a flannel shirt, blue jeans, and a red hat walk through my room with a dog leash in his hand. He would briefly stop at the same spot every time, and look around, then keep walking towards the ravine. I should note that this was fairly new construction in a suburb of a small city, and all that had been there previously was forest. I think he lost his dog in the ravine at some point, and he was there trying to find it. I went with my best friend during high school for summer vacation to his grandparents, who live in the countryside in Japan. I stayed in his mom's old room, which has a small wall closet. Just above this closet was a smaller closet door, like 1.5 feet tall and about 3 feet wide, just above it. Weird design, but their house is old. The first couple weeks, I was pretty jet-lagged and Japan is hot and humid, so I didn't really sleep at night. If my light was off at night though, I always felt uneasy about that small closet space. Something about it just felt darker than the rest of the room. Toward the end of the second week, I started to adjust to the time difference. One morning, I woke up and that small door was open. It was unsettling, but I closed it and just thought maybe it wasn't closed all the way and came loose. A couple nights later, I woke up feeling uneasy. It was dark and I could kinda see, and I could see that small door was open. It was much darker than the rest of the room, like black, pitch dark. This was the first and only time I experienced paralysis. I was too scared to move, say, or do anything. I just felt this darkness coming from there. I don't remember sleeping that night, but I must have because I remember waking up the next morning. I told my friend about it, who said his mom told him about something like that, too. When we got back home, and I talked to his parents, his mom kinda joked with me. "So I heard you met the ghost." My dad was in hospital with a serious brain tumor. The hospital was about 40 miles from me, and he was in no shape to even keep awake. One night I was chatting to a friend on MSN, them days, yup, and he asked how my dad was. I turned to my left, and I saw him sat in his chair just looking at me. I replied, "Think he's okay, sat in the room with me," to which my friend said, "Isn't he in hospital?" I looked again and nothing. I never mentioned it to anyone, told my friend I must have been seeing things. Dad survived and still here today. Cut to about 21 years later and I met up with my dad and just having a chat, he says, "Something been on my mind for years, son, and can't shake it off. When I was in hospital, I remember been at home sitting in my chair, you was on the computer, and you looked at me. Then I woke up in hospital, but it felt too real to be a dream." That's when I told him my experience. When I was 6 I slept on a bunk bed in a room alone. The bottom bunk was empty, was meant for my younger brother, but he was too scared of sleeping in a bed alone. So I was alone in that room that night. I remember a chilling feeling that night, then it suddenly got really warm. Probably because I was undergoing a night terror of some sort. Then I start breathing heavily and open my eyes and see the room is empty. My little night light in the corner of the room comforts me back to sleep, except as I closed my eyes I felt a heavy hand petting my shoulder. My eyes rip open and there was no one in the room. As soon as I lay back down the petting continued and I covered my head just pretending to myself that it was my mom. It took me 12 years to stop sleeping with my head under the covers because of that memory. My mom, of course, knew a woman passed away in that apartment before we moved in, so she always believed it was that woman trying to comfort me. My parents had flown to Houston when I was 11 years old to see a specialist for my dad's lymphoma. It had just returned from remission, but there was no reason to think he was in any imminent danger. I was riding my bike home the day they were to fly back and stopped my bike in this ditch we used to ride down up on our way back. When I got to the top I felt a wave of emotion come over me, and without even knowing what I was saying I told my friend I was riding with that my dad had just died. My friend was like, "What?" I just knew. I rode the rest of the way home to find my grandparents, my dad's parents, bawling on our back porch. I stood there watching them in the doorway for a few minutes, unable to walk out to talk to them. He had died an hour before I got home from school. No phone calls to the school, nor did I interact with anyone that knew prior to riding in the ditch. I just knew when that wave came over me. Again, there was no reason to think he was even remotely close to passing. He had caught pneumonia while in Houston and died from that. Not me. but a security guard I employed when I ran a dispensary. She showed me the video. In fact, she sent it to me and I still have it on my phone. It's a camera mounted in her young daughter's room. She's playing on her bed, which suddenly slides away from the wall about a foot. The daughter then jumps off the bed and runs out of the room to tell her mom. Later, the daughter randomly got up, walked towards and out the front door while the mom was calling after her. Daughter snapped out of it once mom made physical contact. Daughter had no memory of how she got outside. So, security guard calls a priest who literally goes by and tries to do like an exorcism on the apartment, or whatever. About a week later, an electrical outlet behind a couch that she never used caught fire, and the whole apartment building burned down. I'm usually a pretty big skeptic, but I don't know how to explain the video. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.